F1 rule sees Lewis Hamilton banned from driving at the French Grand Prix. An unusual rule in the F1 means the 7-time world champion will have to sit out of the practice session ahead of the French Grand Prix coming this Sunday. Stick around to know the unusual rule and who will replace him. Normally, Hamilton will be strapping himself into his Mercedes, ready for as much practice time as possible to prepare for the business end of a race weekend. But that will not be the case at Circuit Paul Ricard, with one of the team's junior drivers sitting in his cockpit instead, thanks to a lesser-known rule. So what's the unusual rule? Teams are required to replace one of their regular racers with a young driver for at least 2 FP1 sessions per season. Each driver is required to miss 1 session each to give the younger generation a chance to get behind the wheel of an F1 car. In an explanation by the Mercedes team, they said, over the course of the season, each driver is required to give up one of their first practice sessions for a young driver. Lewis has selected FP1 in France for his session, and George's will take place later in the season. It is certainly an unusual rule in the world of sport, given that teams are rarely forced to drop their best players or disrupt their preparation for a big event. The 37-year-old won't have had as much on-track time as his competitors when Sunday's race gets underway. The rookie taking the place of Lewis Hamilton at the first practice session is Nick de Vries. Team boss Toto Wolff feels it is an ideal opportunity to test a driver who may one day earn a permanent seat in F1. Nick is replacing Lewis in the first practice this weekend as part of the allocated sessions for young drivers this year. So we're looking forward to seeing how he gets on, he said. Here's what we know about the replacement driver. The Mercedes EQ Formula E team will field the 27-year-old Dutch racing driver de Vries in the 2021-22 Formula E season. He drives for the Mercedes AMG Petronas F1 team as a test and reserve driver as well. The 2019 FIA Formula 2 Championship, the 2010 and 2011 Karting World Championships, the 2020-21 Formula E World Championship and other titles were won by him. De Vries already got a taste for F1 earlier in the year, turning out for Williams in FP1 at the Spanish Grand Prix. The Dutchman managed to outpace Williams driver Nicolas Latifi in the session. After his FP1 outing in Spain, he said, "It's always very interesting to get the opportunity to see inside or behind the scenes of any organisation and particularly a Formula 1 team. It's interesting to learn and see where people are putting their emphasis and how they are building towards a weekend and how they are preparing. I think as a racing driver, you learn from all different things you do, driving different cars, being part of different teams and organisations and manufacturers. Every little piece is ultimately making you a more complete racing driver," he said. The future of Mercedes is in safe hands, it seems. Many have tipped him to become Hamilton's replacement if the veteran decides to walk away from the sport. Mercedes aren't the only team fielding a reserve driver for FP1 this weekend. Alfa Romeo will be putting former F1 race winner Robert Kubica, 37, in ex-Mercedes driver Valtteri Bottas's car for the opening practice. This will be the Polish driver's second FP1 outing of the season, following a run at the Spanish Grand Prix in May. Let's fill you in on the hype for this weekend's French Grand Prix. Damon Hill has touted Hamilton and Mercedes to clench a long-awaited race win on Sunday, having failed to finish higher than third at any point this season, representing the longest stretch into a campaign where Hamilton has been unable to register a Grand Prix win. Although plenty of hype heading into this weekend is centered around the 7-time world champion Hamilton, it is actually George Russell who, on the whole, has been Mercedes' star performer in 2022. Having just made the step up from Williams, the youngster has finished in the top 5 in all but one Grand Prix this year, with an unfortunate DNF at Silverstone ending his streak. But Hamilton is the one gathering momentum and has finished on the podium in the last 3 races. Former world champion Damon Hill and 10-time Grand Prix winner Gerhard Berger recently had an entertaining debate on how they see it panning out at Circuit Paul Ricard. Hill believes this could be the weekend the Silver Arrows finally come good and raise the possibility of a Hamilton and Russell 1-2. "I'm going to go with Lewis Hamilton to get the win," he told the F1 Nation podcast. "We've been talking about how well they've been getting on. I think that the first corner is going to be a bit tricky. Let's say Charles Leclerc loses his front wing, or Max Verstappen gets a puncture or something like that. Maybe even on a pure pace, the Mercedes springs a surprise, because I think in race trim, Lewis has, on occasion, been very quick," he continued. When Hill ambitiously proposed the prospect of a Hamilton and Russell 1-2 on the F1 Nation podcast, Gerhard Berger responded, "What's going on with you guys? Are you drinking or what? The Mercedes hasn't worked really well anywhere this year. It could be a bit better, but I don't think it will go so much in this direction that they will suddenly play a role in winning the race. Paul Ricard has always been a little bit different. It's very smooth. It's a very different style of circuit. I wouldn't be surprised if the Mercedes works a bit better there, because it's very flat. But in general, it will again be a fight between Red Bull and Ferrari. If you've watched this far, kindly leave a like and subscribe." Verstappen is not buying the hype, as he believes Red Bull has everything in control, despite the timeless battle contested by the pair in 2021. Faced with the prospect of Mercedes gate-crashing Ferrari and Red Bull's party, the Dutchman remains focused on his own team and stretching their lead in the Drivers' and Constructors' Championships. When asked whether Ferrari and Red Bull could be battling another team in France, he responded, "I don't know. Maybe. I don't pay a lot of attention to that. We didn't put the best package on track in Austria," Verstappen told Sky Sports. "Then it causes issues with the tyres. I expect us to be more competitive here. It's important to score points, even when you're not as competitive as you'd like. If that's our off weekend in Austria and we finish second, that's good for us. We need to understand our cars better, not to make the same mistake. Hopefully, we won't do that again," he concluded. The Drivers' Championship has broadly been contested by Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc and Sergio Perez thus far, with Carlos Sainz succumbing to mechanical issues and misfortune. A series of smooth circuits has brought the best out of their W13. Many feel as though the Silver Arrows may finally be in position to challenge runaway leaders Red Bull and Ferrari, with Circuit Paul Ricard theoretically well suited to their W13. The question is, will Mercedes catch up and become the third force? We don't think so. However, while it may be too late for Mercedes to close the gap and mount a challenge for the top prizes, finishing the season strongly is a genuine possibility. Do you agree with us? Let us know what you think in the comments. This brings us to the end of the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, click on the bell icon for notifications and new F1 updates like this.